Well, thanks for everybody attending. Tonight is 6:01, March 22nd, Finance Committee meeting. In attendance, I can see we have Tom, Cheryl, Drew, Joe, and myself. So we do have quorum. On the agenda for this evening, it would be the acceptance of minutes, budgets, articles, discussions. We also have a discussion with Caesar on the new software articles. A discussion with Gordon and Matt on the school articles, discussion on wage and personnel amendments, reserve fund transfers, correspondence, public invitation, calendar, and as may arise. So the first thing I'd like to do is, did everybody get a chance to read the minutes that Linda sent out early this afternoon for the 317 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. So if nobody has any objection, if somebody would like to make a motion to approve the 317 minutes, that'd be greatly appreciated.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Then we'll do a roll call vote. Joe.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
Drew.
The only, I guess, question I had on the minutes was I'm not sure on the table of like the things we voted on, if that was how actually that was like spot on for the things we did last meeting. So that's my main concern on voting yes.
Was there a specific one that you were concerned about?
I mean, the one that, not really, the one that got my attention was the backhoe. I didn't think we had voted on that, but I just, I would want to hold my approval of the minutes for this week.
So which one was that? Do you have this up? The backhoe?
Hold on.
Drew, I can tell you, Linda and I took separate notes on it. Since I have to sign them now, and I was, we were in alignment. I found,
yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just vote yes.
Okay, and then myself is a yes. So those are approved. So moving on to the next item on our list of things to do today would be, let's see, who do we have? We have Caesar here, so we might as well just jump right into that discussion so that we don't keep Caesar on hold all night. Caesar, you're here, right?
I am. How are you?
Good. So we wanted to get some more details regarding the data processing line that we see in the FinCon budget, which is quite a bit higher than in the past. We understand that there's some new software that we're looking to get. So we wanted to try to get an idea of what that entails in a little bit more detail of whether or not this is like the only vendor that you've looked at, or if you've looked at other vendors. So if you could just give it. Yep.
Are you referring to the budget request for the next fiscal year, or are you referring to the capital project?
What are we referring to? Like the data, the fiscal year 22 expenditure, the line item 15 for data processing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the only two increases that were added was the addition of additional licenses for Barracuda. We had initially 100 licenses. The Barracuda Office 365 Essentials, with the addition of all the boards and committee members and volunteers and other staff, we've added that by 200. So we have a total of 300 licenses. Typically, we leave a little wiggle room because obviously as volunteers come and go, that number is a variable number. So that's not an exact one. So we probably have about between 20 to 30 extra licenses.
Okay.
And I just bumped it up to 300 because it gives us a better volume price.
Okay.
So that went from, I believe, that went up to 23,000. I'm trying to remember what it was last year. I want to say it was like 13 last year. So it probably went up around 10,000. I was able to get very competitive pricing for it. The normal vendor we went with was charging us, was going to charge us about 5. I was able to get it down to 3. I think 350 at the very least. So I worked with our software company on that one, software and hardware company to get that down and get it competitive. So that was one increase. The other increase we have is for, aside from the basic, contractual obligations, 5% increase, whatever that is.
Yep.
We have the near map, which is for the assessor's office. That's an additional $7,000 on the budget. That is the software that they're using for inspections, especially due to COVID. They can't go on site. So they're using it to assess the properties in town remotely, or virtually, I should say, because they're not doing it remotely. But essentially, Nearmap is a orthophotography service. It provides like 4 aerial orthos a year, and they have different views they can measure. So versus us spending $9,000 to $10,000 to $12,000 on orthophotography that we get for a specific time of the year, with this service, we're getting all the orthophotography ranging back to, I believe, 2013, 2012, all the way up to today. And they do it, I believe, 4 times a year. So it's a lot. We're getting a lot for it. The price can be high, but from my explanation, based off of what I was told by the assessor's office, it is very, very highly used. And they seem to have a valid business justification for it. I did ask them to write it up so I can present it, but I have not received that yet. So I'll check up on that.
Yeah.
So those
Charlie,
are those are the main increases.
Yeah. Charlie, is that like something because we're doing it because it's a COVID related item? Is that potentially something that could be paid, reimbursed?
Which one are we doing that's COVID?
The near map?
We'd want to be doing that anyway.
Okay.
So I don't see it as a COVID related expense.
Okay. Well,
I don't think there's any intention, and Caesar can correct me, that once the pandemic ends, we're going to stop doing this.
okay.
Yeah, it was initially purchased because of COVID. That was the initial purpose for it. The Department of Revenue has approved it as a resource to assess properties just recently. And the assessor's office does have full intentions. And I believe, I will verify this, that the Board of Health, Highway Department, and the Building Department has also shown interest in it. So it is a multi-department use system. It's not just going to be used by the Board of Assessors. So the intent is to continue using it while it was purchased because of our COVID situation. They do intend to fully use it after the pandemic is considered over.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions for Caesar's with regards to the line item question? We'll move on to the asset management system in a second. Anybody? Are we all set with that? Okay.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so if we want to move on, can you describe there's a $24,000 request for work order asset management system. Can you describe a little bit about what that entails, what we're getting for it, for our money, that sort of stuff?
Sure.
We had some concerns about it wasn't enough storage capacity, that sort of stuff. So
yeah, so we have 2 different articles. So one article is for work order and asset management, and that for that project should have been for 24,000, 24, 25. I forget what number I put in there. So that system is for facilities or municipal school building and highway department. Essentially, it's a work order system built for fleet, facility maintenance, and assets between the 2 departments. The product itself, we are getting 3 modules. The way that their pricing works is you get 1 module for a setup and an annual cost, which you get regular annual cost for 1 module. The next tier is 2 to 3 modules for X amount of dollars. And then the next tier is 3 unlimited modules, 3+ modules, as many as you want for X number of dollars. So Scott Materna had originally came to me and said, he's interested in the software. He wants me to pursue it. And I said, okay, sounds good to me. I met with the vendor. I, made sure that he did his, webinar with them to make sure the product was, what he wanted. And I worked with the vendor on pricing and the language of the proposal. Right now, after talking to Steve, I know there has been a lot of interest, at least on the highway department side, to get a tool very similar to the asset and work orders, but for fleet, to be able to provide adequate reports to finance and capital planning when it comes to swapping out vehicles and equipment, to kind of show that data over time and how much money they're putting into vehicles that need to be replaced or equipment. So what we did is we got the 2 to 3 tier price point. And for our third tier, because that's technically included in the price, we also got stormwater management, which is a management soft system for stormwater. So the asset and work order is 3 modules. It's facilities, it's fleet, and stormwater. There is unlimited users. It's unlimited space in terms of assets and work orders and stuff like that. The intent is this would replace the current ticketing system we have in place for building maintenance and highway, which I put in 2016, and it was just a way for us to help departments document. It started off with my department, and then that kind of expanded out because everyone else is using paper or email.
Okay.
The annual cost for the first year, we're getting 2 months off, so we're only paying for 10. The first year cost, which is included in the capital, is $86,1627. So it's $8,616.27. That covers all 3 modules. Okay. That's just the licensing, the subscription for it. You get the asset management, we get the reporting, we get the work orders, we get all that. Okay. Then for $15,000, or we'll say $15,217, which is the other aspect, that's the implementation services. So there are actually 2 parts to this. So the first part is the virtual consulting, which is for all 3 of those modules. That's for us to work with the departments and get anything they have in Excel uploaded into the system, so we're not having to manually enter it in. Very basic stuff, basic implementation, because it is just a work order system. Mm-hmm. So we just got to get the information in there. We build out the retention and all that other stuff when it comes to the equipment. Then you have the other part, which is a facility condition assessment and a preventative maintenance schedule creation. And that's based off the total square footage of all of our facilities. And that specifically is for building maintenance. So what that does is, in addition to the virtual implementation, which is when we send them documents of all the Excel sheets we have, instead of Scott having to go around and mark an asset, make an ID for it, send it out, get a preventative maintenance schedule made out for it by himself, this is the professional service for them to go and come on site, go through every single town facility and do the work for him. Then they take that data and they put it inside this capital forecasting software, which I believe, I have to double check, does have an additional, which is actually part of that $8,000 cost I told you. Okay. It goes into a separate system and it allows Scott to get reports, pretty much present to finance and capital planning. Hey, this generator is scheduled to be replaced for $20,000 come fiscal year 25. That's the purpose of that module that he wants to get. They come out, they do the work for him because, everyone's time is limited. And the capital forecast module does a little more of the heavy lifting when it comes to asset management. It's not just inventory. It goes a deep dive into it. They go through, they make a preventative maintenance schedule for him. They put it into the system. He can follow that. And they also give him a rough replacement date and cost. So they're really helping him get stuff updated when it needs to be. I did ask, one of my questions to them was, that's great for $15,000. We have you guys come out and you guys do all this work. Now, what if we get a new generator? Is it going to cost us more for you guys to put that into the system and to generate that preventative maintenance schedule and forecast, capital forecast data? And they said, no, it is part of your annual subscription that if you do get a new piece of equipment, we add it into the system and they still do the work, but they don't do it on site. They do that remotely. So the annual cost does cover new assets being added over time.
Okay. So the that first year, 8,616, that would just switch over to your normal data processing line item for next year.
Correct. And then the total cost, because they're giving us 2 months off for the first year.
Yep.
The renewal on July 1 of 2022 would be $1,039.52, and that includes all the work order, all the asset management, and the capital forecasting.
Got it. Okay.
And I'll break this down for you guys, and you guys can see it all on paper.
Well, it's very enlightening. Anybody else have any questions?
No, I just say, Cesar, thanks. I mean, we went over a lot of this when we met initially, and then we had a couple of questions. You know, most everyone that you've answered here so far, and then the other concern we had was about stability of the firm because they just got taken over. But two things with a little bit of due diligence. First, they're rated in the top 20 in this space, and they're rated among the cheapest. So. And it looks like the private equity firm at the bottom is dumping a bunch of capital into them to help them grow. So it looks like all of those things that we were worried about before I think we're good with that stuff.
Yeah, I've reached out to my counterparts of the other towns and just to see what they're using, whether they're using different systems for each, whether or not they use Dude Solutions. I can say that they are probably the most popular software I've seen used in the public sector. Even in the private sector, I've used them at my previous jobs, and it is a good software. Obviously, they've upgraded since I've used it, but they dominate the public sector. That's one of their strong suits.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you, Cesar. If nobody else has any questions, we'll move on to our next piece of things to do, which we have the school articles.
Fred, do you
yes,
want to talk about the or the digital workflow?
Oh, yes. Do we miss that one?
Yes. That was one of them. That was the second article.
Sorry.
That was mainly about.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. It was mainly about the 50 gigs. Remember, we had this conversation.
That's right. Yeah. So that's the document management e-permitting. Yes.
Yeah.
That was the one we had the questions on. So, yeah. Go for it.
This is the one with the storage. So I had a meeting with them today. So what I did do was I reached out to our software and hardware company, SHI, who does all of our hardware for the most part. I have them getting me a quote for Laserfiche, which is another product similar to DocuWare. Both of them have the strong suits. Both of them are DMSs and ECMs, or electronic management, content management systems, and document management systems, for those who don't know what that is. And they both have the same feature set. Licensing is a little bit different. Pricing can be different depending on the package. So a lot of the pricing is hard to negotiate after, realizing a lot of this is on state contract. So a lot of negotiating is done. So a lot of the prices we're going to get, they're only going to be variable when it comes to the one-time cost, like the implementation of professional services. That's where you're going to see the differences. And then the other differences you're going to see are obviously products. So I'm looking at Laserfiche and DocuWare. I'm going to be scheduling a demo of Laserfiche next week, hopefully. And I should have a proposal from Rico on that product as well. I have SHI working on a proposal for Laserfiche. And I also reached out to CDWG to provide me a quote for DocuWare and Laserfiche as well. So we have two different products, 3 different vendors providing a quote of some variant.
Perfect.
Like I said, it's all state contract. I did ask a couple questions in terms of the storage. I did ask if we were able to use an API to connect to like an Azure storage, if they have any Azure storage connectors.
Yeah.
And the cloud version. So the cloud version does not support that. They do support a hybrid. I don't think an on-premise implementation is beneficial for the town. I think it's more of a capital burden in the end.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, for sure.
If we're going to be looking at this as a long-term, once we backfile, convert all of our files in the file cabinets and put it into the system, it really comes down to us making a decision whether or not, there's an excessive cost to the data part. I do think for this phase where we're only implementing a certain number of departments, there are things we can do operationally to lower that storage amount by accepting only certain types of file sizes for building plans to minimize on the storage requirements. Because we do have the large, part of the proposal is a large format printer, which we can then blow up and print out if we have to. We can continue to receive scanned. We continue to receive paper maps and scan them in because the large format printer does do that, and we can store those maps somewhere else, not in DocuWare directly. And a lot of the other stuff we looked at, the files get stored at 300 DPI, which is a standard storing guidance. And roughly, based on the calculations, 100,000 single page PDFs at 300 DPI would only use up 3 gigs, based on the calculation. So we look into that based on the departments we're doing. You look at it, any type of form submission that someone submits electronically goes into the system. You're looking at a 300 DPI, 8.5 by 11. We're not looking at anything bigger than that. So that gives us some idea of what to expect in terms of volume for the 50 gigs. I do think that as we expand, we can look at other storage options. They did say that we get 15 users with this package. With the departments we're planning on implementing, we're only looking at using 10. So that with this package, we're looking at the ability to implement at least 1 or 2 departments in addition to the other departments are doing building, regulatory, and all them, without increasing our annual costs and still be within that 50 gig margin. They did say that if we do exceed our user count or storage abilities, we can upgrade to a different package, midterm, and say, we can get a, I believe it was 100 gig storage or something like that with a 40 user license, and that comes out to $18,000 a year, which again, for 40 user licenses, that's not bad. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. But it comes down to storage. We could look at the hybrid model and just focus on the infrastructure to handle the storage internally, or we could try to do an on-premise but cloud to us where we go completely Azure. Those are all different options we're looking at. I'm working with the vendors to try to find out what works best for the town financially and what works best in terms of usability and functionality. Because obviously we don't want to put something in Azure and have issues down the line. This is something that the hope is every department's using it. This is going to be the lifeblood of the town, hopefully at some point. And if all of our paper and records are being stored and going through this, I don't want there to be issues, especially if we're having the public access it for public records at some point or another.
Right. Yeah, it's a balance up, because if you have anything internally that you manage hardware, then you've got to have a database backup plan and all the costs associated.
All of our costs increased: electricity, backup costs,
right,
licensing,
right,
uptime, everything. We at that point, I would say this: at that point, if we did have this system internally, we probably should have a generator.
Yeah.
But
at that point.
Yeah. I mean, but Cesar, I don't think anybody's suggesting we should go on premise anymore. I think what we're a little skeptical about, and you as you look at other systems, you probably will be too, that $37.50 per user per month, which is what this is going to cost, and 50 gigs. I get it sounds like we're using very efficient either compression software or PDF formats at 300 DPI. So you're going to get a lot in 50 gigs, but it's just something. Fred's seen it. I've seen it where we talk terabytes for that price, and per user per month fees that are more in the teens rather than close to $40 each per month.
They did add on that as the packages grow larger, right? With the larger storage package, with the larger user package, the price per user does decrease. So for instance, that package I was explaining with the 100 gigs or something like that, and the 40 user license, the additional cost per user instead of being $960 comes down to $4 and change. So as the package goes up in the more enterprise level numbers, that price does decrease. I will say my number one concern that I said right from the beginning was the user price. Right now it's for $9,000 a year. the annual cost is cheaper than the implementation. So the 9,000 doesn't seem a lot for what we're getting right now. But thinking about long-term, when we do have eventually 60 to 70 to 100 users plus on the system, that's going to be half of the data processing budget by itself.
Yeah.
So I see the concern. I am looking at, like I said, all the other options we have. Thankfully, with an on-premise solution, we're looking at a one-time cost. So if we can figure out a way to host it up in Azure, we can avoid maybe having a very low annual maintenance cost, lower compared to what we would be spending, and have everything up there. It's still going to be backed up. It's still going to be in the cloud. We still have the same level of availability as we would having it hosted with them. So
if we went with the cloud approach, which would be my recommendation, are there existing infrastructure problems for access to the internet? I know I've been down to the town barn like last year and getting, anything done on their system seemed to take forever. And I wasn't sure if that was an issue with the,
there is a mix of issues. I don't know at what point you went there. I know we've recently upgraded all their desktops. That could have been part of it. I know that probably was part of it.
Yeah.
I know Steve's was recently upgraded to a laptop before the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened and everyone else is upgraded to a laptop.
Yeah.
We just upgraded the mechanics. We're doing the cemetery desk with obviously the old equipment that we have. I shouldn't say old. It's still fairly new equipment we have that was swapped out. But we're taking all that, we're putting it inside places to upgrade that equipment. The cabling project we're still working on. That's a big burden. We're dealing with some contractual issues. I'm trying to pretty much cancel the contract we have right now with our current vendor, and then we have to go out for rebid on the project. So that's kind of where we're at. The vendor we had do the cabling project did not pan out as we intended. We had a lot of issues and there was a lot of damage done that costed us more money that we then put on them, of course. So that is part of the issue of the highway department. They're probably running, I want to say, either Cat 5 or even probably lower than that. It has to be Cat 5. All
Right.
the cables there, they are, I'm not sure if you've seen the server room, the cables were coming, they come out the wall, they're crimped on the other end, and they just plug into a switch. We're trying to change that. We're trying to put in a patch panel, put in Cat 6 cabling.
Okay.
So a lot of that's going to improve. At that point, we also did upgrade the internet bandwidth in all of our facilities. So they should be seeing speed increases. Town hall, they're also going to be getting a cradle point device for internet backup as well. And in addition to internet backup, it's also going to serve as a secondary ISP. We're using our FirstNet plan to provide them a secondary internet circuit. So that way they can use both and it will fluctuate based on usage.
Okay. Yeah, again, the last thing I want is we go to a cloud-based approach and then find out that because of a service, the highway can't use it or something like that. Again, I haven't been down to the highway since before the pandemic, so it sounds like a lot of these issues might have already been taken care of. So,
yeah, no, there are a ton of issues townwide that we're hoping to resolve. It's just taking time.
okay. Does anybody else have anything? I know Tom had to drop off. He let me know that he had a school commitment to deal with. But does anybody else have any questions? All right. Well, thank you very much, Caesar. That was very enlightening.
Yeah, I'll if you guys need me to come back Wednesday, just tell Linda I'll be back.
Okay.
Hopefully I'll have more information.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
No problem. See you guys.
See ya. All right, moving on. Then the next thing we have is a discussion with Gordon on the school articles. And I would assume this would be the tennis court and is there going to be an article for the officer at the middle school?
I guess I'll defer to Paula on this because she's the chair of Silver Lake, but I can answer questions if she doesn't have them. Paula, you're on mute.
Hi,
Hi, I'm sorry, I was on mute. I thought we were talking specifically about the tennis courts tonight.
which is fine. I have two, we're talking about articles, so the tennis courts would be the first one. I was just inquiring whether or not if the same article that we had last year was going to be on this year for the part-time officer at the middle school. But we could talk about the tennis courts first, so.
Okay. So Gordon's joined me tonight, as well as Matt Durkee, who is our facilities director. And thank you for putting us on your agenda this evening. Regarding the tennis courts, as you probably know, the Silver Lake maintains a very robust capital plan that goes out 5 or 6 years. We've done so for a number of years now. We look at it constantly. We move items around. We keep, figures updated, etc. And we've done a really good job the last few years of using our E&D to fund a lot of our capital needs, because the towns have been, economically challenged, and we've been trying to maintain as much as we can ourselves. Now we're faced with, a number of things coming up on the capital plan that we just really can't push off too much further. We can't kick the can down the road too much further without causing buildings or tennis courts or track and field items to really suffer for our lack of funding and postponing things. So I'm going to let Matt jump in a moment, but one of the primary items of focus this year is the condition of our tennis courts, which are also used by the public. But these tennis courts are at the point now where we either need to put some substantial money in to patch them, or take the bigger step and maybe the more fiscally sound step and actually put the money in to refurbish them, and rather than patch for 2 years, refurbish and make the courts useful and safe and well-maintained for more of a substantial number of years going forward. So I'm going to let Matt give you a little bit more detail. He's been closer to the review and the details of the condition of the courts, and then we can take questions and discuss.
Thanks, Paul. So right now we had a athletic assessment done of the facility at Silver Lake, tennis courts being one of them. So currently we have a pretty substantial crack that runs through most of the courts. There's two approaches to this from the athletic assessment. The first approach would be to pretty much redo just the top surface, and that would be around 126,000, which could give us 5 years, could give us 2 years. The court itself is a paved surface, so the full redo of the court would be taking up all that asphalt, putting down new bedding, repaving and painting, and that would be in the ballpark of 340,000.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, by someone's reaction, most of us had that as well. So we were looking to the town because a lot of the use for these courts, we've been looking at the town of Kingston, are public use. And obviously 340 for a tennis court isn't something that we can fit in this year. The courts do need attention. this year, whether it be the 126, the 340, or going with a very cost-effective approach of just filling the cracks as you would on a parking lot. Similar type of material that you would fill the cracks. This has been done in other athletics facilities, but this would have to be done year after year. So we're looking at 3 different approaches to fixing the tennis courts to a safe playing surface right now. Is there any questions about the tennis courts?
Does the town of Halifax get to use the courses, the citizens?
Absolutely.
The tennis courts?
Courts are open to the public.
So you don't have to just live in Kingston.
Correct.
Okay.
Do they have a way that they, because I've already don't remember, that they like allocate the expenses among the 3 towns for the Silver Lake system?
Yeah, that's what this would be. It would be divided. For instance, if we did the full refurbishment, Drew, then our portion wouldn't be the 340,000. It would be actually what's listed on the articles. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd have to look it up. The exact.
It looks like 105,000.
105.
Right. Yeah. So that the 105,000 would be our assessment of the 340,000. Matt, a complete refurbishment. How long is that? What's the life expectancy of the tennis courts after that?
You would look at it just like a parking lot. So you would expect 15 years minimum. I believe we're at 17 now with this. So I would minimum 15, hope for more.
Well, I would hope it'd be more, because if you could get 5 years at 126, it's almost the same amount.
Sure.
Yeah. So you would hope that you would get at least more than 15 years. Does anybody have any questions for Matt in regards to the tennis court before we move on to the HES articles?
Matt, the third way of doing it, just filling in the cracks, how much would that cost?
Oh, that would be just out of normal operating budget costs. We would utilize our own maintenance staff, depending on the timing of the year, whether overtime would have to be paid for that. But the burden would be on operating costs for the material of the crack filling material.
Okay.
I'm trying to see if in this assessment report, if they indicated life expectancy. So if you do have more questions, just feel free to fire away.
Yeah, I just wanted to, patching, does that open us up to like safety concerns? I don't know what's involved with just a simple patch job.
Yeah, so the crack, it's in some spaces, it's about 3/4 of an inch to an inch. So it would be just filling that and bringing it up to the level of the existing court. So that, in theory, should eliminate a trip hazard.
Would it be helpful if we provided pictures to you folks subsequent to this discussion?
I certainly would love to see some pictures.
Okay, yeah, and it probably, a picture, says 1,000 words, and they are in rough shape. So if you don't mind, if we could follow up with some pictures to, help you see the condition for yourselves.
Sure, and I can provide those pictures as soon as tomorrow if the committee would like that. If you just want to let me know who I should send it to, or this entire group.
Send it to Linda, and she can disperse it to everybody on the committee.
Okay.
And then we can just put that on the agenda for Wednesday, Linda, so that we can come back and talk about this particular issue again. And at least that way we'll have the pictures so that we can, have a better understanding of what the condition is. So anything else on the tennis courts before we move on to the number of HES articles that I guess Gordon could probably answer us on?
It does appear tennis courts, Matt, it basically would be a brand new court at this point, and it's a hard court, right?
Yes.
So I mean, we do a lot of tennis courts in the schools that we build, are good 25 years nowadays is basically the life expectancy. They do say that when you get to that 20-year range is when you should be spending money to resurface them, when you get to that 20-year range.
Yeah, I agree, and that's what I've heard, but I don't want to get everyone's hopes up to have this out of the.
Just out of curiosity, how old is the tennis court?
I believe we're at 17 years. Well, 18.
So coming right up on the time frame from original install to substantial overhaul.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? All right, thank you, Matt, for that. Okay, there's a number of articles which looked like they were in regards to HES, such as replace the kitchen flooring, replace hallway flooring. There's also there's an add exterior lights to the HES campus, install access road to the HES campus. So I know that some of these, we had numerous questions at like what exactly that entailed. So who would be best able to answer those questions?
I would defer to Matt.
Matt, not again. Okay, Matt, what do you want to talk about first?
So Fred, I think the first one that jumped out was the resealing of the parking lot for the elementary school.
Yep.
So start there, I guess, Matt,
just 14 all the way down. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So just quick question on that one in particular is what area, what's the square foot area of what we're looking to reseal? And what process are they proposing for you?
So the process is a crack fill, seal coat, and line stripe.
Yeah.
And that would be in the front main parking lot. So beginning.
Not wrapping around the gym, just the front.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, leading up to the newly paved parent drop-off location.
Okay. Any idea from their quote or anything like that what the total square footage is of that area?
I don't.
Okay.
But I can, I've been waiting on that information,
Okay.
but I can send that along to the committee. I can send that along to Linda tomorrow with the pictures of the tennis court.
Okay.
If that helps to get the square footage to you.
It does. I mean, it'll help gauge if, did you get more than one quote or was it just one?
We have 2 quotes in for that
Okay.
now.
Okay.
And the low one is at 24/7.
Okay. Yeah, it's a big area, so. Okay.
Okay. Then there's, which we have, the add exterior lights to the HES campus.
That was blank last meeting.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know. There was a big note next to it that said hold for information. So we weren't sure what that was. We didn't really talk about it, but it's listed as an article. So we didn't know if that was even going to be on there or not.
Sure. I know a little bit about this project. So this is, we're following up with some LED lighting improvements that we've done through green communities in the past at the school. Scott Materna has been spearheading this for, there are some locations inside of the building that have yet to be upgraded to the LED lighting. Some of the smaller office spaces and a few other areas of the building. One of the areas that we wanted to look at was some of the exterior lighting. There's been talk that another parking lot light pole would help with lighting out there. Reports are that it's a little dark, even when lights are full on, and a couple additional lights attached to the building. So we have yet to get that assessment back on that review, but I wouldn't anticipate, unless we want to really light that parking lot up with additional light poles. I don't feel like the price tag is going to be all too high on parking lot lighting, especially if we avoid, obviously no one likes to see attached lights on the building. So, but if we can find different spaces on the building's exterior to light up those dimmer lit spaces, then we'd be able to forego a light post. I would anticipate 1, maybe 2 light posts would be proposed max. And that kind of barely gets us into capital planning.
Okay. Joe, any other questions? Anybody else? Okay, so the next thing is replace the kitchen floor. I assume we were under the assumption this was back where the actual food is being done, not the actual
Correct.
area like the kitchen.
Yeah, so the cafeteria floor has been replaced, I believe 3 years, maybe 4 years ago now. And it's great. The kitchen flooring has been on the radar for years. It's a bonded seam linoleum. The floor has been well maintained over the years, thanks to the custodial staff there. However, some of the bonded seams are starting to break down. Luckily, we've avoided having those seams fail in any of the true walkways through there. So we've avoided any type of trip hazard indications through our health inspection every year. But there is a lot of equipment in there, a lot of extremely heavy equipment. So I personally have spoken with 2 flooring companies. Both have pretty much come back with the same recommendation that they would do the same thing. Sheet linoleum, bonded seams or welded seams. And the pricing I was seeing was around $30K. The labor alone for that is quite extensive, which also includes moving a lot of those ovens, different countertop assemblies, the dishwasher, some other plumbing issues. So it's a large space. There's quite a bit of linoleum that has to be replaced. So that's why it lends itself to that high mid 30s for the replacement of that. That's something that we should definitely be looking at getting done. I would say within the next 3 years. We might even want to bump that up sooner, but some of these seams have been coming apart over the years, and it would be, I think it would be in our best interest to look at replacing that kitchen floor sooner rather than later.
Matt, the article calls for 23,000.
Okay.
So I know you're talking mid 30s. So does that need to be adjusted then at this point, or?
So I had these conversations with the flooring companies going on probably 2 years now. Currently, we have a new head custodian there that he may have sought that lower quote out, which is great. We'd all rather spend 23 than 30. So, that's something I can reach back out to the head custodian to make sure that their figures are right. But I know from the years that I was working on that and looking at pricing, we were in the 30s.
Any idea, again, same question as the parking lot, any idea just from my head on how many square feet that area is?
I would, yeah, bear with me here.
Yeah.
I'd say about 1,800 square feet minimum.
Okay.
But that's going off the picture I have in my brain right now. So maybe if I put a tape measure, it might turn out a little differently.
And they're telling you that their recommendation is to go back to welded lino?
Yes.
Okay.
And Matt didn't touch on one of the issues that has come up repeatedly is the floor comes up as an issue for the Board of Health inspection. And that's why we were pushing to get it done this year.
Okay. So this segues well into the hallway flooring.
Okay.
Article.
So I believe all that flooring is for carpet tiles.
No, Matt, this is the kindergarten wing, the hallway.
Okay.
From behind the
vinyl?
library, ripping up those tiles and changing that over.
Is it just VCT or?
Current is VCT. So the specifically the kindergarten entrance, over the years, it has become a drop-off site. There are students that come in and out of there every day. Staff. It's the original VCT tiles from the '93 edition in the building. There have been water damages, numerous water damages at that entrance over the years. So the VCT tiles are starting to come up there. We currently have put a carpet tile platform as soon as you come in to help shed water, ice melt. But those tiles are in rough shape going down that hallway. So we're proposing replacing that run from the doorway all the way into the main entryway.
Same quick question. Any idea?
On square footage?
Mhm.
I'm going to have to bring my tape measure over to Halifax tomorrow.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other questions regarding either the kitchen or the hallway? All right, hearing none. The next item is install access road to HES campus. Anybody know anything about that?
That's the
Sidewalk?
connection, Matt, to all the exit doors around the building.
Oh, I see. Yes. So this has been talked about for years. I believe the original intent of the Halifax '93 edition was to have a feature like this in place. All of the exterior doors on the backside, the C wing of the school, have concrete pads. So when you walk out the door, you have a concrete pad, safe entry, exit. And then it just ends into dirt and grass. And then after the 3 summers of various building improvements, it's mostly dirt now. Snow removal is an ongoing issue with the grass. Obviously, the machines pick up dirt, grass, doesn't work well for the snow machines. It's also an inconsistent walkway for fire drills. Anytime students and staff are leaving the building, this walkway would connect the existing parent drop-off ramp walkway, and it would wrap around and connect to every single exterior door all the way over into the kindergarten playground area. So this would immediately help the snow removal maintenance efforts. It would then benefit from students and staff coming back in from the building, not walking through mud, grass, and tracking that in the building. But it also acts as a safe landing for when you have to leave the building in an emergency. You're walking out onto a paved surface. It will also help for heavy snow totals. We rely heavily on the highway department to help the school out on the backside there when snow totals get too much like in 14, 15, the snow totals we had then we have quite a bit of just the direction of the building, how it faces. It's in constant sun. So with all snow totals on the building and on the side of, on the top of the building, you're getting melting and it's freezing back up on the side of the building. So you're creating these ice flows on the back side of the building. So another way to, instead of going up on a ladder, you can then now incorporate equipment to be more secure back there with a paved surface you'd be working off of.
So how wide of a run are you talking, Matt?
The low quote that I have for 22,300 is a 9-foot walkway.
9 foot wide?
Correct.
By how? What's the total length? Any idea?
I do have that one. Sorry, bear with me here.
Yeah, no worries.
Sorry, I'm having trouble finding that one.
All right. And are they proposing concrete or asphalt?
No, it's asphalt.
It is asphalt?
Yes.
Okay. And it's, okay. So 9 feet. And just to, so if I'm looking at if I'm on the side of parent drop off and you got the ramp that comes down real long.
Yes.
You're gonna, if you're walking down that ramp, you're gonna turn right.
No, you're going to, if you get up to the top of that ramp. So
From the top of the ramp.
Correct. Yep. So if you get out of your car at parent drop off or student drop off, you walk up that ramp.
Yeah.
You'll come up to the ramp leads you into the gym hallway entrance. That would tee and you'd go to the left and that would tie into an existing exterior hallway door. And then that would then continue towards the ball fields, connect with the far end of C wing exit stairwell, and then wrap around the backside of the building, connect all of those concrete platforms.
All the way down to the kindergarten playground.
All the way to the kindergarten playground, correct.
Okay. All right.
Again, what was the estimate on that?
22,300. That is a quote.
Which is less than what's in the article.
Yeah, Joe, I'm wondering, because again, the flooring we heard was 30 and we have it listed as 23.
Backwards.
I think these numbers got switched.
Yeah, I think so
that's
too.
what I wanted to double check the actual numbers, because we've got install access road at 30,000 and we've got the kitchen at 23. And I really think it's the other way around.
Flip flopped. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we could just double check those before we vote on those, that would be great, but
Yeah. As far as the hallway flooring, again, real quick, for the kindergarten area there, for the VCT, does 2,400 square feet sound about right? Or does that seem heavy?
No. If I'm I have the vision of the kitchen and we're coming up with 1,800 for that, I think that seems like it's in the ballpark.
Okay. Yeah, if it's anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000 square feet, that number of 12,000 is pretty good.
all right. Anybody else have any other questions for Matt on that issue before we go on to the next one? All right. The next one we have is the install central air conditioning in the tech lab and art room.
Okay. So the tech room has several of the servers in there. Obviously the students have all their computers in there, so it does get quite warm. And we all know that electronics do not like the heat. So that is a safety measure for our equipment to protect that from overheating. It also, the idea with that, so is the art room, did you say was listed on there?
Yeah, it says tech room, tech lab and art room.
Matt, on this, we were talking about right now, all the summer school programs have to be in Plimpton, and they weren't previously. So the idea on this was to get that AC unit installed to cover the tech room, the music and art area there, so that we could have summer school occur in Halifax again.
Okay.
So it was to kill two birds with one stone with that system.
Yeah, and it's kind of like before I even heard about the summer school issue, we were kind of looking at the same way, kill two birds with one stone. The art room is a large room. There's it can be used for many different things. And with town meetings and various events going on, it's a larger space. We kind of went this direction with the music room because it's a large space. Our hopes were that we might be able to utilize these spaces for rentals and whatnot during the summer months, or as Gordon mentioned, having summer school there. So the location of the tech room and the art room is such that they're very close. So a larger split system could work. One split system could work for both of those locations.
So you're thinking split system?
Yes.
And I'm assuming that's all duct work, everything, all new duct.
Yes. Well, with the split, you'd have your in the fan, the blower in the room.
Yeah.
It would then run up and then be positioned on the flat roof in that location right above, pretty much over the hallway, where there's power there already from the music room split system.
Okay.
So we've already made
it includes the run up to the roof, cutting out the roof there as well.
Yes, making the roof penetration,
Yeah.
which we may not have to because there's already a system in place there with the penetration has been made. So it is possible that we might be able to, forgive me, I'm not an electrician, or a plumber. So I don't know if I'm going to be violating a code by mentioning this, but it is possible we could run those lines up through the existing roof penetration if code allows. We don't want to damage our new roof.
Right.
Definitely not. Okay, is there any other questions with regards to the air conditioning? I think that's it, right, Linda? I think that's all the topics. I've been going through it. I think that's it.
Let me take a quick peek at your questions from last week.
I hate to miss one and then have to ask Matt again, but I've been going through and I think that's all.
I think that's all of them.
Yeah. I think so too.
Yeah, that's everything that you had questions on in last week's minutes.
All right, well then, if nobody else has any questions, I'd like to thank Matt for coming and giving us all this great information so that we can make a decision on this in the future. Thanks, Matt.
My pleasure. I'll follow
Hey,
up with Linda tomorrow and send her the square footage
And the
and
pictures.
pictures of the tennis
Yep.
court.
Perfect. Awesome.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
Matt.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Do it.
All right, next on the agenda,
Hey, Fred, I had one question.
sure, Gordon.
The article that you were talking about for the officer.
The resource officer.
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't listed yet, so that's why it was in my head.
Okay, so I would expect us to follow up on that. I just texted with Paula, so I think you're going to get a response from us tomorrow.
Okay, because I remember asking in an earlier school committee meeting whether it was coming. They said yes, but I'm like, we went through the articles. I'm like, it's not here. So it was in my head as to I didn't want it to get missed. So
Okay, thank you very much for that.
sure, yep. All right, so moving on, the next thing on the list would be any wage and personnel amendments, Charlie?
Not tonight, no, I'm sorry. I've been working unfortunately on other things.
That's quite all right.
We got 2 more requests while we've been meeting, so.
Lovely.
Yeah.
All right, so we have discussion, budgets and articles is on the list. I personally think we probably want to wait to get some of that. Again, I'd like to see the pictures and stuff like that. So I would propose that we don't do any voting on any of this stuff. We can just do that on Wednesday, unless somebody else has any other opinions on the matter. So I don't really think we have anything to talk about tonight. I think all the budget discussions can get covered on Wednesday. Do we have any reserve fund transfers?
No.
No. Okay. Next on the list would be correspondence, and I know we do have some.
I just forwarded those RFPs that you got, and I can definitely put it on the agenda for next Monday if you want. You can't do Wednesday because we're
Right.
within the 48 hours. But I
Correct.
can put it on for Monday if you want to discuss them further on Monday. I just wanted you to have them to be able to look at them.
Yeah, we got 2 of them. They came in late this afternoon. It was after 4 o'clock. I have not read both of them. I only got through like the first couple of pages of the first one. So yes, if we could put that on the agenda for next Monday, that'll give everybody an opportunity. It's quite in depth, so it's going to take a little bit of time to get through that. But I did find some of that information that was provided was very interesting.
Yeah.
So
Quite useful.
yeah, quite useful. So yeah, so we'll table that discussion until next Monday. Is that the only correspondence, just those 2 things?
That's it.
All right then. So moving on, do we have any public participation? Nope. Okay. You mentioned, Linda, that like Steve and Scott might want to come in and talk.
Yep, I put Scott Materna on the agenda. He just stopped by today just to make sure it was covered in case you wanted to meet with him. So he stopped by and just asked if he could meet with the committee, I presume about what's going on with the budgets, but he didn't say specifically. And then Steve Hayward said he wanted to come in on Wednesday too, if he could. He did mention specifically an issue as far as new solar street lights and whatever. And now they had kind of accounted for that in the budget line, but now that's level funded, he wants to know how to address it. So he wanted to come in and speak about that.
Okay, that's fine. So that'll also be on the agenda for Wednesday, both of those. Okay, so is there any other public participation? Are we all set with that? I know next Monday we have Jill's coming in, the superintendent from Silver Lake, to talk about the budget. I assume we'll also be talking about the HES budget. So that'll be the bulk of our meeting next Monday. So we'll focus on the 2 schools and the RFPs that we got in today. And then, of course, if we get any reserve fund transfers for that sort of stuff. But I think that'll be our focus on the next Monday meeting. So we have a calendar. Again, we are set up for meetings this Wednesday, the 24th. We also have a meeting on the 31st. I think did we stop at the end of the month or did we go into April? for
We stopped-
Wednesday.
So far, we just said keep through March open.
Okay, so we probably need at a minimum, that April, the first Wednesday in April. Does everybody agree with that one?
And Monday,
Yeah, well, we have the 29th.
right?
So the 31st would be
Is
March
Wednesday.
31st.
So we have the 31st covered.
But
And
aren't we,
we'll have our normal
Sorry.
meeting on the 5th.
Okay,
isn't that the day that
the warrant.
we have to be done by? So the 7th doesn't make any sense,
Okay.
right?
Well, you can always meet the 7th if you want, but really we're working on a closeout on April 5th. That does not mean, the budget, it's one thing, the articles would be something else. That you really need to have a budget by April 5th. Now, that doesn't mean that it's frozen in the sense of what you print in the warrant. And I even have a paragraph waving my hands and saying, hey, folks, it's COVID time. Things can change. So if between, let's say, April 5th and May 10th, the legislature comes out with, $100,000 more for Halifax, not expected, but, as an example, when, things change like that, you are certainly able to make changes in Article 4. We put out the salmon colored budget or whatever at town meeting.
Now, we haven't
the
even-
articles, if you can leave room in there that says, recommendation at town meeting. If you don't feel you have enough information, if we don't have numbers, whatever it is, and you still can be doing work and still bring recommendations or even changes in recommendations between April 5th and May 10th. Obviously, you want to minimize it, but as a practical aspect, it's certainly allowed.
So, I'm looking at the calendar. So we've got Scott and Steve coming in on the 24th. We're going to come back and vote on the articles that we covered tonight. Schools are on the 29th. I expect we'll probably vote on that sort of stuff on the 31st. That leaves us then what's left to fill in, that point where we've got, okay, this is what we have X dollars, where we're going to apply that. And that needs to be wrapped up by the 5th. And we haven't even talked about the special town meeting articles yet.
Which should be very short. I think for the most part, we may have one for unemployment. I think there may have been one other, and then we'll have the contracts with the unions that we need to settle for 21, not 22. The 22 contracts are in the annual town meeting. Settlement for 21 is in the special.
Yep. All right, so at this point, it looks like we're hitting all the dates. So my suggestion is we kind of table maybe Wednesday the 7th and look at it back on the 31st and say, are we going to need that date? Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
All right, so right now we have dates the 24th, the 29th, the 31st, and the 5th confirmed. And on the 31st, we'll decide whether or not we want to add in an additional, either the 7th or, again, if we have nothing, then we'll figure out what our April schedule is at that particular point. All right. Does anybody else have anything else they want to bring out before we adjourn for the evening? All right. Hearing none. Would somebody like to make a motion to end the FinCom meeting at 7:15?
So moved.
There a second?
Okay.
Second. Okay. So let's do a roll call. Cheryl,
Yes.
Drew,
Yes.
Tom,
Tom, you
Muted.
muted.
Tom. Tom says yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
So who'd I miss? Did I miss Joe?
Joe.
Yes.
Joe. And myself is yes. All right, everybody, have a great evening, and I'll talk to everybody on Wednesday.
Take care,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.